It is 7 p.m. I'd like to go ahead and call to order this regular city council meeting for Monday, June 12th, 2023. If you could stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Mannion.
Present.
Pratt. Jenkins.
Here.
Van Allsburg.
Here.
Rhines.
Here.
Gilroy.
Here.
Hanson.
All right, we've received information that both Councilman Hanson and Councilman Pratt are unable to be here this evening. I'm looking for a motion to excuse their absence.
I would move to excuse Councilman Pratt and Hanson.
All right, thank you. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Now we have approval of the agenda for this evening, unless there are any changes that need to be made.
Make a motion to approve agenda as submitted.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have an opportunity for audience participation with a maximum of 5 minutes per presentation. If anybody is in the audience, if they'd like to come forward to the podium, state their name, address, and address the council. No? Okay, all right. Moving right along on our agenda, we've got our council meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2023. I'm looking for a motion to approve those unless there's anything that needs to be noted or changed.
Make a motion to approve the minutes
All
as
right.
presented from May 22nd, 2023.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries for the council meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2023. And Brandon, I understand you had an opportunity to look at accounts payable for this evening.
I did, because we had a 3-week gap, there was a little higher this week, and we did some taxes, tax payments, so it's a little high, but nothing of concern. So with that, I would make a motion to approve checks 76753 through 76805 and ACH 433 through 449 for a grand total of $215,676.79.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions regarding the accounts payable for this evening?
Just 215,000?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't get 1,000.
Do I have support for that motion for the approval of the accounts payable?
Support.
Thank you so much. Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Jenkins.
Yes.
Van Allsburg.
Yes.
Rhines.
Yes.
Gilroy.
Yes.
Mannion.
Yes.
Next on our agenda, we have Williamston Community Schools update, and we have Superintendent Spina here. Thanks so much for being here.
Good evening, thank you for having me. I see the lectern has moved over to the side of the room, but it hasn't gotten any taller, so I'll try to read my notes here. We completed a very successful year of school on Friday, and we had a 24-hour turnaround, and starting tomorrow we'll begin our summer intervention program. So we'll have students coming back into the buildings starting at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and looking forward to getting that going. So we took, today was kind of a reset day. So it's going to be a very busy summer. I'd like to start by just saying I appreciate the ongoing support by the city and the staff of the city in just a number of different ways. I mean, everything from getting our road signs up for some of our state championships to the messaging board downtown. It just kind of goes on. And so we really appreciate the collaboration. In particular, I want to commend the police department for their continued support, and also the council for approving our MOA for a school resource officer. That has been a tremendous success, so much so that I was asked to present at the Great Lakes Homeland Security Conference a couple months ago, specifically to talk about how to effectively implement SROs in a school setting. And so that has been just a huge success, both in terms of just building relationships with the community, having officers really get to know students and students know the officers, and kind of building that sense of trust over time. And then, of course, just that inherent sense of security that comes with having a uniformed officer in the buildings who can respond to situations as they develop. And as we all know, there were some things in the community, well, not just outside of our community, very close, over the past several months that having that SRO presence made parents and staff and students feel more comfortable coming back into a school. Moving into next year, just a couple areas that we're going to continue to focus on. Curricular alignment, which I know is boring education stuff, but for us that's super important. We have made significant investments in updating our curriculum throughout the district, and then of course making sure that's aligned to state standards. So even though we have the world's best teachers, if they're not teaching to what's aligned with the state standards, all that effort would be for naught. So making sure we're investing in those resources so they have the best materials possible to provide to our students. Safety and security continues to be a major emphasis. Last year, as you might recall, we really focused on some big projects, redesigning and rebuilding the fronts of our buildings. So we have a 1 point in, 1 point out, secure entrances. This summer is going to be a combination of things, everything from adding additional egress points, new cameras, and upgraded recording system that allows us to more effectively monitor our cameras. And just small things that you might or might not notice, like putting horizontal placards on each of the room numbers, which is actually something that we learned last year from the police training that took place at our middle school last July, so that if police are moving through our building, they can see the room numbers projecting out from the wall before they actually get out to the door. So just those little things, we're really chipping away. New signage on entrances to make it more aware of where you're going if you're a first responder coming in to respond to the numerous medical emergencies that we have every year for one reason or another. And then lastly, standardized grading practices continue to be a focus throughout the district, particularly at the high school. Just making sure that what a grade represents is consistent from class to class, and so there's a universal understanding by staff, parents, and students as to what those marks actually represent. Sounds simple, it's not. We're several years into this, but we're making some significant progress. I also want to kind of go back in time a little bit. My very first presentation to the council as superintendent, which would have been about 7 years ago, one of the things I talked about at the time was that, well, we were broke. And it wasn't an exaggeration. We had, if you took into account 2 retirement contributions that we were actually behind on paying into the state pension system, our effective fund balance was about $25,000. So that was all we had. So that was literally a leaky pipe from becoming potentially a state takeover district or having to submit a deficit reduction plan, which would have been an automatic 5 to 10% cut across the board and really decimated the district. So we were right on the line. This many years later, I can report to you that our fund balance is in excess of $4 million. It's roughly 18.4% of revenues, 18.4% of expenditures. So significant progress on that, and this year for the first time I think maybe, well I can't say ever, but the first time in the 2 decades I've been a part of the district, we will not have to borrow to get to our first state aid note payment this fall. So in the past we've always had to borrow, and of course when you borrow you pay interest, so that was money every year we were just throwing away. Now we can borrow from ourselves, not pay any interest, and take that additional money and put that back into the district, our staff, students, and resources. I talked a little bit about summer projects. A lot of that is safety oriented, but there will be some fun things. We're really focusing on adding aesthetic touches throughout the district. We're also going to do some major paving projects, especially at our middle school. Pretty much all the driveways and parking lots need some attention. That's expensive, so we are going to focus on that. If you ever utilize the walking path behind the elementary school, that whole thing is going to get replaced this summer, as well as the elementary playground and most of the front half of the middle school parking lot. So not as exciting as some of the things we've done the last few years, but it will be a significant upgrade for folks using those facilities. I do want to pivot then, just to wrap up, to opportunities for further collaboration. The first, as you might know, is the Safe Routes to School grant process that involves a number of different entities. Williamston Township is the lead on that. But the idea is to kind of collaborate and work on upgrading ways that students can safely traverse their ways to school, primarily through walking or biking. So we have actually concluded through the community input phase of that and the research phase of that, and now we're working collaboratively with the township to submit the actual grant application. That will have some majority of the work in the final grant would be inside of the township. but there are a number of projects inside of the city boundaries that will make it safer for students to travel to school. I know I talk about this often, but I just want to bring it up again because it hasn't gone away, and I know you're all aware of it, but the Highland Riverside intersection outside of the elementary school continues to be a major problem for a number of reasons, but the biggest one that I think is actually actionable, could be controlled, is the left-hand turn. Left-hand turn from Highland onto Riverside, or left-hand from Riverside onto Highland. I try to get out there as much as I can to help Terry with crossing guard duty, but I've been hit twice from cars going out, turning left from Riverside on the Highland, which is one of the reasons I'm out there. So I know it's very hard to enforce because it's a safety issue and because it's also a logistic issue. So quite frankly, I have tons of photos in the morning. If you've ever seen the choreographed nature of the way the buses come in and the car, it's as best as we can do given the situation. But what we'll often find is cars want to turn left from Highland onto Riverside. They can't because the buses are bumper to bumper stacked up waiting to get into the bus loop. But because none of the cars are moving because that car wants to turn left on the Riverside, nothing's moving. So it's almost comical. So you'll have the buses all stacked up waiting to get into the bus loop, but they can't because they need someone to move. But no one can move because that car wants to turn left on the Riverside and there's no one in front of them. And that's the kind of the kicker. There's no one in front of them all the way down to the stop sign. But because people don't want to utilize that three-way stop, we end up in this reoccurring logistical issue. The bigger one to me is the safety piece, but the logistics of it is a reoccurring issue. So we are, this summer, one of my main focuses are working on RFPs. We're looking out a couple years to potentially build our way out of that whole situation. That will, of course, take community support to invest in those improvements, but it's a work in progress, but we do have a vision for that. It started a couple years ago with purchasing the property at 502 Highland, that yellow house that's there, that will allow us to correct that offset intersection. And actually what we needed was the lot, not so much the house. And that will kind of give us the ability to build our way out of that whole predicament here in a couple years. But until then, it's still a major concern. And then the last piece, which again, in my estimation, is the biggest macro level issue we have as a community, is lack of housing. And again, I know I come in here every year and I talk about the same thing, but it's still a major issue. And again, I probably hear about it and see about it more than everyone else just because of the nature of the role. But you know, just anecdotally, we have lots of families that can't move in here that want to. We have lots of staff that either we can't hire because they can't find a home, or we do hire, but they still can't come in. So they're driving from, you know, sometimes some excessive distances to get into work. Also, 22% of our district are school of choice, so that's roughly 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 4 students don't live in Williamston because there are no houses here for them to buy. So when we talk about the traffic, again, that's one of the reasons, because legally we cannot provide them transportation. It's not the only reason, but it's one of those reasons. This morning, ironically, I didn't know this was going to come out, but they published a list of the 50 communities in Williamston with the fastest growing housing prices. Over the past year and the last 5 years, almost all of them, well, there's like a couple in Oakland County, and then almost all of them are in Lake Michigan, except Williamston, who is on the list. We ranked number 48 with if I got this right, a 41.2% increase in home values over the last 5 years. So I was at a sporting event last week, and a gentleman came up to me and said, "Thank you for the success of the school district, because it's doing great things for my house value." And of course I said, I said the same thing, well, selfishly, like, yeah, that's been pretty cool for me too. But what the downside to that is we are pricing out young families to be able to come into the district. And so what we have is this vicious cycle where we're basically balancing our books off of school of choice. Again, this is a benefit in the short term for the school district because we really get some of the best and brightest coming from outside the district into our schools. and families who are super involved and want their kids to be here and giving back to the community, but that's not a sustainable model. And so when we talk about adding housing inventory, we're not looking to grow as a district. That would not, our strength is our size. We know our kids, we know their families, we can provide customized supports and interventions to them. If we're a big Division I, Class A high school, with kids just become numbers, and you don't have those relationships. So that's not what we're looking to do. What we want to ensure is 10 years from now, we have a sustained level of enrollment, which in turn benefits the community. And again, it's a win-win. You expand your property, you expand your tax base by adding inventory versus raising taxes on people that already live here. You have folks that are invested here that are using the roads, using the EMTs, using the police department and all the water and all the other things. They're contributing back to that because they live in the community. It would be a win for our businesses downtown. You know, again, I think it's well documented the struggle that some of our retail stores go through because of lack of foot traffic. Again, you have literally 500 cars a day that drive past all of our downtown businesses to go shop in Hazlitt, Fowlerville, Perry, wherever they're coming from, because that's where they live. So I think, again, it's a win-win-win if we can look at a strategic way to add inventory where we don't become some other communities in the area that I think have grown too big, and that wouldn't be a strength for the district, that wouldn't be a help, but in a way that 10 years from now, we haven't declined to such extent that we can't offer the same types of programs and educational opportunities for our students that we do now. So I know you already know I'm going to bring that up every time I come in here, but I got to keep being the broken record because it is that serious an issue. So those were my remarks for this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have a question about the, so you said you were at $25,000 7 years ago, and now you're at $4 million. I was wondering if you could hit on the high points that allowed us to move in that direction.
So this was one of those things that at the time was a gamble, but we had to do something. Williamston has a long legacy of academic success. I mean, it goes back decades. And it's in part to having great educators, a supportive community. There's a whole lot of reasons for that. But we were in the education community referred to as like the best kept secret in Michigan. And it would drive me crazy because we talk to people outside of Ingham County and they go, oh yeah, Williamston. I mean, that's like the great district nobody's ever heard of. And I was always asking myself, like, well, why? Why are we like this secret? Let's let it be known to the public. And so we really started to market our successes by sending out information, by publishing things, press releases, signs, I mean, just everything you can think of, right, to get the word out. And it was effective. After going through about 10 to 12 years of a declining enrollment, our enrollment shot back up to about the 2004, 2005 levels just before the pandemic hit. So we actually had the highest enrollment since 2004 in the 2019-2020 school year. And because of the way Michigan is funded, it's a per pupil funding model, that really helped us boost our not only enrollment, but our resources as well. Again though, that was really driven on school of choice enrollment. We weren't building subdivisions or houses of any kind in Williamston, and unfortunately we're still not. So where did the kids come from? Well, they came from outside our boundaries. And so that's how we end up in this situation where almost 1 out of every 4 kids coming through our doors every day do not live in Williamston. And when I say Williamston, I'm talking about the district's geographic boundaries, not the city. So that's really been what it's allowed us to do that. I'll also say that I'm proud to say, this is a big part of it, because I know a lot of districts that were in the situation we were 7 years ago got their finances in order by cutting everything. It was like the slash and burn. I was at a conference at the Treasury Department where the keynote speaker was like this hired superintendent they brought in who didn't know anybody in the community, and like his job was basically like cut everything so they could get their finances right. And he had no connections, no relationships, so he was able to do that because he was an outsider. And I was like, that's the keynote speaker? Like, I don't think that's what we want here. So the only other option would be to push hard in the opposite direction. And so not only have we increased our fund balance, we've also been able to make significant investments in our facilities. I mean, all our roofs have been replaced. Our HVAC has been upgraded. We have, most, I think, 5-year-old buses, I think now might be the oldest one we had, maybe 6 years now. My first year as superintendent, we were driving 1999 model year school buses, and they look like 1999 model year school buses. So all the safety upgrades and the investment in curriculum, we've raised our educators' rates of pay significantly. The 3 out of the last 4 years have been record pay increases for our teachers in the history of the district. So all those things have happened simultaneously with adding revenue to our fund balance. But to keep that going, we need the help of our governance entities to really take a serious look at how we add housing inventory, because this is not a sustainable model that we have, and I'm really concerned 10 years from now, we're gonna be in a tough spot.
Adam, I always appreciate when you come and give us the updates, because you're absolutely right. This school district is top notch, and people recognize that and want to send their kids here. Kudos to you, your staff, for, doing what you do for the kids in the community and the kids outside of the community that come here and become a part of our community. It's so important, and, we love hearing about it. Does anybody else have a question for Adam before we move on? All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Made
Adam.
it easy on me.
Appreciate
All
it.
right, cool.
Hope you have a
Thank you so
good
much.
summer, but a busy summer.
It will be, it will be.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, moving along, we'll start off with our action items, and our first is reappointment of Noah Bellinger to the Planning Commission for a term to expire 6/30 of 2026. Looking for a motion to move that forward.
So moved.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you both. Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Allsburg,
Yes.
And we actually have Noah here, so thank you so much for being willing to serve, continually serve, in this capacity. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your knowledge.
Thank you.
Next is our 2023-2024 fiscal year budget resolution. I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to our city manager, John Hannafin.
Thank you, Mayor Gilroy, members of council. We've been working our way towards this point, starting back in January, but tonight is the resolution to adopt the fiscal year budget for 2023-2024.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for our city manager? Yes.
Yeah, I do have a comment that I need to interject. In terms of the cemetery amount, we paid $15,000. That came up in one of the meetings I was at, and there was a desire to see that increase. But the next couple meetings, when I was gonna try to pin them down on exactly how to present it to you guys in terms of like why they need more money, et cetera, then Wanda wasn't there, and so that never happened. So, prepare yourselves for next year for me to present to you why it hasn't been increased like for a long time.
Right.
So that's gonna happen this year.
Okay, all right, great. Definitely, I'm sure John will reach out to Wanda and they'll have that discussion, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, Steve?
Do the figures that are provided as far as the revenues, does that include the 6% increase for property tax values?
The budget is modeled with about a 3% revenue increase from last year,
Okay.
Correct.
because the 6% is not certain. That's the assessor's overall view, but that doesn't take into account if we have any board review actions, which sometimes can be significant. Because we take in about right around 1.7 million in revenue, so even like one large facility exemption, or for there's a dark store, a business goes out, and then that's kind of the thing that's happening all across Michigan now is they'll ask for a lower assessment. So it's a conservative revenue estimate of about 3%.
Great.
Over last year.
And if I could add too, just keep in mind that as your taxable values increase, then your capture from the DDA and TIFA is also gonna increase, which is going to reduce the increased tax or offset against this, so to speak. So just because the taxable value goes up a full 6%, you won't necessarily see that in the general ledger.
Great, thank you, great question. If there's no other questions or discussions, I'm looking for that recommended motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget for the city of Williamston, appropriating the amounts necessary for municipal purposes and providing for the levy of the amount necessary to be raised by ad valorem taxes upon real and personal property for municipal purposes.
Thank you so much, Dan. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you so much. Brandon, if there's no other further discussion, Barbie, call the roll, please.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon,
Yes.
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Allsburg,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
All right, next is our action item for the 2023-2024 budget utility rate resolution. I'm gonna turn that over to our city manager, John Hancock.
Thank you, members of council, Mayor Gilroy. So we've been working also our way towards this point, and it's been a number of years since there's been any rate increase, and it's never an easy thing to do. We did receive information from our rate consultant that we should be looking at significantly almost double-digit increases over the next several years, but as we know, and we've talked about at length in multiple work sessions and public sessions, that at this point, that isn't entirely warranted. We did talk about getting on some level of a modest increase for each of the major utilities, water and sewer. Sewer in particular, because the sewer plant is aging. There's a number of elements that will eventually fail, and that we won't have any choice but to replace those. And again, it's never an easy thing. Meridian Township was kind enough to toot their own horn and do a rate comparison of surrounding communities, all the while maybe bearing the fact that they're raising rates by about 14%. Leslie's raising rates about 37%. Grand Ledge is raising rates about 14%. So there's a number of communities in our immediate area that are double-digit increases, and we're trying to forestall that. It's no secret that we're sort of towards the middle top as far as rates in the area. There's a number of communities across the state that are a lot more, and there's a number that are a lot less. But each community's rate model is its own unique thing. So, yeah, I'd happy to answer any questions you may have. I think these are reasonable rate increases that we can accommodate. I'm not going to tell everybody that it's easy or that there won't be some people who will be impacted, but I think it gets us on the track towards marching towards the significant replacement for the wastewater in particular.
Right, and I just want to make sure that we remind the community that when you watch these council meetings, this is something that's been discussed continually over the past several years. We chose not to increase rates our last fiscal year. Actually, we haven't increased rates in almost 6 years. But this is something that does have to be done. Discussions that we've had have been very thoughtful, meaningful, how it would impact our residents. And just to recap, because we don't have the packets are available for our residents to view on our city website, but the utility rate resolution that was discussed in great detail, debated, questions answered, and our public hearing on May 22nd. This utility rate resolution increases the water commodity charge by 1%, and the utility rate resolution increases the sewer commodity charge by 5%. These are not easy decisions, but just as our city manager stated, there are communities surrounding us that are looking at double-digit rates. So we've done the best we can to make sure that we are very mindful of our residents and their needs, but also the needs of our city infrastructure and what we need to do to prepare for the future. If there are no questions for our city manager regarding this, I'm looking for that requested action.
Do you have a question?
Not a
Steve?
question.
Okay,
Oh.
all right.
I'll make a motion to approve a resolution approving modifications to water and wastewater rates for fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
Thank you so much, Councilman Lanyon. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Van Allsburg. Are there any other questions or further discussion? Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Lanyon,
Yes.
Jenkins,
No.
Van Allsburg,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes. It's not an easy vote to make, but we do it fully aware that how this impacts our residents. So I appreciate everybody's vote and everybody's efforts in this. Our last action item for the evening is our Jubilee fireworks consideration, and I believe we have information here. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn it right over
You
to,
missed item 9D.
oh, I'm sorry, oh, that's a big one, very sorry. 9D, our 2023 utility improvement project construction contract award, and I actually have that page up, so thank you very much, John, I appreciate that. So I'll turn that over to you, or to Scott.
Yeah, our city engineer is here, he can walk us through this, and also Mr. Bradley's here from Spicer, always have lead support, thanks for being here, Mr. Bradley.
We've been marching forward with the HUD-funded projects, but we also had the North Putnam Street project that we had taken bids on through MDOT and their process that came very high and only one bidder earlier in the season. We separated the infrastructure part, meaning the water, sewer, underground work for North Putnam so that we could proceed with a staged approach on that project. The numbers came in more where we thought they would on the infrastructure part of it, and by combining the two, we end up with a combined project of just under $3 million. About 1.48 of that is the North Putnam infrastructure, and then the remainder, just under 1.5, is Williams and Lloyd Street. We have been working with HUD. City Manager Hannafin's been working through some of the final processes of approvals for the financing part with HUD. There is a motion suggested in front of you to approve that contingent upon us finalizing the HUD financing part. That's very important because we can't proceed to a contract until we have that last step completed. So we expect that in a matter of a short time frame here. So we're asking for approval tonight of the combined work of the North Putnam project with the water main projects through HUD. The scheduling is that North Putnam would be done later this summer, early fall. They would start and then complete it before snowfall, and they would have a temporary pavement surface in there. We've been, in fact, I had a discussion earlier today with our representative from MDOT about the second part of that work, which would be rebid through MDOT for the road construction portion, and that would follow in the spring under a separate contract. And then the Williams Street project and the Lloyd Street projects would fall into line after construction season. You know how it's suspended here in Michigan through the winter time, but they would get going on that as soon as the season allows in the spring of 2024, with completion of those areas in the early to mid-summer of 2024.
Okay, all right. Questions from Councilmember Stan?
So I'm going back to your timeline so the hope is that Putnam would start later this construction season this summer, wrapping next year, but Williams and Lloyd would start next year?
We'll allow them to get started now, but
Right.
in talking with any of the interested contractors, it was just too much on one.
Gotcha, makes sense.
And the contractor that is the lowest bidder for our project is Iron Horse. They have worked in town several times with us very successfully. We're very happy that they put the bid in like that. And they said that, you know, their plate's full until they get to the middle part to the later part of August, and this was perfect timing for them. But they don't want to bite off too much more than they can chew with their full crew, and they want to make sure they do a good job on North Putnam before they dig into another part.
Totally makes sense. Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Dan, I appreciate that question. Any other questions or discussion before I ask for this motion? All right, I'm looking for the requested action.
I would move that we award the construction contract contingent upon funding through HUD for the 2023 utility improvement projects, including North Putnam Street, William Street, and Lloyd Street, to Iron Horse Excavating LLC of Eaton Rapids, Michigan, in the amount of $2,975,518.11, not to exceed.
Thank you so much. Do I have support?
Second.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion or questions, Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Allsburg,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon.
Yes.
All right, now we will move on to our last action item of the evening, and that's the Jubilee fireworks consideration. I'm gonna turn this over to our city manager, John Hannafin.
It's only fitting we end our action items with fireworks, in a good way,
Yes.
in a celebration
Yes,
way.
in a celebratory way. yes.
So tonight, we bring this to you, this is for approval, the local resolution approval for Jubilee fireworks. Certainly an awesome part of the event. Different vendor this year, a little bit bigger outfit. Sounds like they, the gentleman did it previously, did a good job, but this is a, a lot bigger company, and, excited to have them in town. So I'm sure Councilmember Rhines can fill any details from the Jubilee side, but staff's recommending that we adopt the resolution.
Great, thank you so much. Councilman Rhines, anything you'd like to add before I ask for the motion?
Zindas has been very gracious and helpful with sponsoring the fireworks again for their third year in a row. We very much appreciate their support. We do have a new vendor. It's Great Lakes Fireworks. I'm forgetting their West Branch. They're out of West Branch. They do a lot of shows around town. They do a very good job. We're very excited to have them. We're looking forward to this.
Great, excellent. Any questions from council? All right, I'm looking for the requested action, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from the Red Cedar Jubilee for Great Lakes Fireworks LLC to have fireworks at Howard Dawson Park in Williamston on Friday, June 23rd, 2023, as a part of the Jubilee, with notifications made to NISA.
Thank you so much for your support. Thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, Barb, will you call the roll, please?
Jenkins,
Yes.
Van Allsburg,
Yes.
Rhines,
Yes.
Gilroy,
Yes.
Lanyon.
Yes.
That concludes our action items for this evening. Moving along, we have our discussion items. On there, we have our road, diet, and construction project update. We kind of already covered that with the motion for the utility improvement projects. Is there anything else that needs to be added? Yes?
Yeah, thank you. For Road Diet, we are having a public open house type format here in these chambers on the 21st of June from 4:30 till 6.
4:30 till 6 or 6:30?
Yeah, we'll stay here as long as people are here, but that way we can cover the folks who may have a practice or a T-ball game to get to later in the evening, and then those folks coming after work. We'll have the plans open, the engineer and I will be here to answer any questions that folks may have. And we did put communications on our Facebook page and generated some interest, which is great. Helped also redirect some folks to what a road diet is and what it might look like. We did use an example slide. There's a boulevard on there, so I want to clarify we're not putting a boulevard in. We'll probably upgrade that slide or change it, but we didn't want to deviate from the presentation before. But we'll be here. And then process-wise, after that public meeting, we'll take input, and then we'll have council will be asked to adopt a resolution of support, and then we're working with MDOT, the engineer and I on the scheduling and the payment of the improvements. So that's the update. Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions regarding road diet or?
Just update time-wise, have you got an estimate as to when that might occur? I know we have some steps to take. but-
Yeah, we're hopeful that, pending the resolution at the first meeting in July, and then it's really dependent upon MDOT, whether they hire the contractor and schedule the work, or they allow us to do that on their behalf. So hopefully it'll be this summer, yeah. And by summer, I mean, that's before Labor Day.
Great, excellent.
Still white shoe season, so.
Right, and hopefully it'll take place before school goes back in session. correct?
Yeah, we're gonna, obviously, like with any,
Yes.
through the chair, it's like any project, we wanna be conscious of that and try and mitigate any of that kind of disruption as much as we can.
Thank you so much. Moving along, correspondence, we did not receive any, so we'll move on to our department head reports. And John, I'm just gonna come right back to you.
Yeah, the only thing to add, we have a parks meeting this Wednesday, a lot of good stuff on the agenda. So that's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, and then we do have a DDA meeting next Tuesday, so busy time. Did have a planning commission meeting, but I'll let our rep update the group on that.
All right.
That's all I have tonight.
Great, thank you so much. We also did receive our reports from Livingston County Department of Building and Safety Engineering, who handles all of our permitting issuance here in the city. it, you know, just like we have our road construction that we're anticipating, it looks like a lot of our residents are busy with projects, so that's always nice and good to see. If anybody has any questions regarding that, they can always reach out to City Manager Hannafin, and he can get those questions answered. So I'll move right along to our subcommittee reports, and it sounds like, Brandon, you have a planning commission update for us.
Yes, so planning commission met last week. We have a company that's interested in building property next to the strip mall down on Grand River. And so they submitted their initial layout of their thoughts. And so we did an initial approval, gave some feedback on some potential concerns we might have, and they're addressing them. So now the process just moves along its way until they're ready to do their final site plan. So planning's doing its work.
Good, excellent. Any other committees that met? No? All right, great. We have another opportunity for audience participation with maximum of 5 minutes per presentation. Anyone? All right. We'll keep moving along. We have our council member comments this evening, so I'll start with Steve.
No comments.
All right, Brandon.
No.
Scott?
So my comment tonight's on the farmer's market.
Yes.
So I would encourage you all to go out there. And last week we had this music group that had 12 people playing jazz, and they were all dressed up in outfits and stuff. And apparently 12 was not enough, because at the end, they were soliciting for more band members. And they said, no auditions, just come and play. It's really fascinating.
Oh.
And, they're not bad either.
Right.
It's like New Orleans kind of jazz.
Cool.
Brian Williamston was like, whoa. So yeah, come to the farmer's market and
Well,
bring your tuba.
right. Nice, love it, absolutely. Dan?
So I'm gonna put in a plug for Jubilee. We're a week away from the Citizen of the Year dinner and the official kickoff of Jubilee. We've got everybody's favorite events coming back. The Boy Scout Pancake Breakfast will be on Sunday. You can buy your tickets in advance if you find your local Boy Scout, where I believe they're available on their website. So that's back. And we've got we're really trying hard to get a lot of cool stuff for the parade this year, where our theme is celebrating our agricultural heritage. So we've got like Jorgensen's Farm Elevator is a big sponsor this year, and we're trying to get a lot of cool farm tractors and different things in for the parade. We just approved the fireworks tonight, and as long as we continue to keep getting some rain like we did yesterday, and hopefully tomorrow that will go off without a hitch. We've got some. We have I think I talked to the other day, a couple council meetings ago. We rented a mechanical bull for Friday night to go along with Harry Holmes's country concert down in the tent. One big thing that a lot of people have been asking for a few years, ever since Old Nation came to town, and due to a difference in distributors with who the Lions and now the Jubilee Committee used for our beer sales and what Old Nation had, we weren't able to have Old Nation in the tent. Well, with the Jubilee building a whole new refrigerator trailer and putting some large dollars into some infrastructure, we were able to change some things, so we got to keep our distributor, who we've had a long-standing relationship with, but also bring in Imperial Distributing, who distributes for Old Nation. So now we'll be offering 3 Old Nation products in the tent, along with all of our prior offerings. So Williamston's asked, we've made it happen, we finally have Old Nation available in the tent. So that's huge. People should be very excited about that. We have a few years ago, this is a personal favorite of mine. A few years ago, we had a band called the Fly By Night Band in the tent on a Saturday. And it's a group of, they were middle school kids then, they may be young high schoolers now, but they play amazing classic rock. They'll be in the tent from 7 to 9 Thursday night. If you enjoy classic rock, you should come out and hear them. We have the Eagles are putting on their cornhole tournament at the same time, so you can come down, hear some awesome music, and play cornhole. But That's a great band that's gonna be in there. We have a magic show for the first time, Wednesday night, right after the kids parade. The gentleman, Jeff the Magician, will be wandering around the tent for most of the day if you're in there for your lunch, and he'll do strolling magic in the tent, but then he's gonna put on a full show, 7:30 to 8:30 Wednesday night. But Don and Wendy made these great flyers for us. They're out and about in town. They've got the full schedule. You can grab these in a lot of the local businesses or on our Facebook page or website. But we're looking forward to it. Come on out, have a good time.
Great. And where can people pick up the flyers?
So these, we try to get them in as many local businesses as possible. Admiral, Citgo down here, City Hall has some, Marindorf's has some, they're usually available at Napa, Marathon, a lot of the different local businesses. A lot of the committee has like 4 or 5 places they all grab a stack and they take them to. I usually put them in Admiral and Napa and a few different places, and then everybody grabs them. We try to get them in as many different businesses around town as possible. Oh, I would also like to give a big shout out to city staff, who's always a huge help with Jubilee. Scott and his guys always go out of their way to help us out. Like, for example, this year, Howard Dawson Park's in the floodplain, and in the spring it gets very wet down there, and there's parking from the school track meets, and it can rut up a lot of stuff. And without a word from us, the DPW guys went down, put up barricades across where we park our trailers, and put the bleachers to keep people from parking and getting stuck there and making it difficult for us. And they just went and did that. Barb, whenever I'm, running a little late, or if I hadn't submitted something, I'd get an email or a text, hey, remember, we're getting close on this. And they just do an amazing job and help us out, and I wanna make sure I give them a big shout out, so.
And you've got 32 sponsors on here, and I'm sure that you would take more. So if anybody out there would like to
Definitely will.
sponsor any part of Red Cedar Jubilee, get a hold of Dan. Find one of these flyers. It's redcedarjubilee@gmail.com. They have a website, which is redcedarjubilee.com. They've got a Facebook page. It's an amazing event. It's going in our 52nd year. It really is, it's such a fun time in Williamston every year when we do Red Cedar Jubilee. So please extend our gratitude and thanks to your Jubilee staff. Without them, you wouldn't be able to do this. If anybody wants to volunteer and be on Red Cedar Jubilee staff this year or next year, again, talk to Dan. And you wanted to add something too, Steve?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend the Memorial Day event at the park, and for all those that were involved in putting it together, it was a wonderful and moving event, and it was extremely well attended. The whole park, back a ways, you could see the individuals, when they had music from the high school, Tapper played. It was very well done, and several speakers, and I appreciate that that was done right here in downtown Williamston.
Great, thanks so much.
Great job, Ken.
Yep, good job, Ken. Ken Hall's in the audience today, and he's very instrumental in every year for Memorial Day. Yes?
Just one quick comment. Standing up there and looking at the audience, I've never felt so much, you could just feel the patriotism being expressed and the appreciation. So I've just never quite seen that quite so prominent. And it was a cool thing, absolutely cool.
Well, thank you for all you do, and all your volunteers that help make that happen every year as well. I would just say get out and be a part of Williamston. School is over. There's so many activities every single summer, from our band shell music on Thursday evenings, the amazing farmers market on Sunday at the corner of High and Putnam. We have Red Cedar Jubilee coming up. And there's going to be many other events too. Our Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure, has some summer events as well. So when in doubt, go to the Williamston Community Facebook page, or get a hold of somebody here and we can certainly point you in the right direction for that. And I think with that, we will go ahead and adjourn at, 7:50. I'm so tired, you guys. 7:50 this evening. Thank you so much. I know, 7:50 our time. About 1:30, 2:30, France time.